What is up, YouTube, and welcome to This American Gods Season 3, Episode 3 breakdown, recap, and review. There will be spoilers in this video for this episode, as well as book spoilers in a separate section at the end, as requested by all of you in the comments of last week's video. I will give a warning before we get into that, as well as a promo breakdown for next week. And if you enjoyed the video, please do drop a like down below and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a video. We cover all things cult like WandaVision, The Stand, and Batwoman weekly. So this episode this week was a sort of non-event episode, as it simply pushes the story forward, and it's sort of like the "and" in a sentence, connecting the story to what has happened to what will happen in the future. We had a few subtle hints here and there about what is happening, as we open with a prologue in West Pennsylvania, 1765, as we follow some farmers, and I got some serious The Witch vibes, which, if you haven't seen that movie, you really need to, as one of the farmer's daughters here falls sick, and just like last week's prologue, the mother prays to the old gods for help. Now, the mother uses a corn husk doll and a book of spells of the ancient ones to pray for help from Demeter. Now, Demeter is the goddess of agriculture, harvest, and fertility. She's a Greek goddess, hence the later Mount Olympus reference from the Orderly, and it seems Mr. Wednesday has been married to her around this time, as later in the episode he asks Cordelia to put 1779 on the fake marriage certificate, but Cordelia just put 1979, which makes sense. This means he must have met her shortly after this. Weirdly, she does not appear in the book, and this is interesting as the show is much more fleshed out than the book itself, and we have some major new characters as well later in the episode, the Orisa as well. The crops grow and all is well, as we cut to Cordelia steaming Mr. Wednesday's jacket as they prepare to go and meet his former flame. However, on the news we see a report about blood death and Marilyn Manson's character Johan, who's been giving Mr. Wednesday life and influence, so to speak. 4 of his band members have been found dead, and Johan has said that they will answer to justice in Asgard, which is of course Tyr from the last episode, The Dentist. And Wednesday says that this is a problem for later, which, yes, it will be. It will happen in the next episode. We'll get the payoff. Johan also does not appear in the book and is a conduit for Mr. Wednesday's power, as the Norse band will add more believers for the All-Father himself. Now, I expect that this is Mrs. World's doing, as in the first episode, she was livid that he was controlling the narrative of the day with his stage dive that we saw in that episode. Now we then cut to dead wife Laura, as she is in purgatory on the express train, as this is essentially a waiting room to see where you go, and she's given a pamphlet and a blue card, the pamphlet telling her all what she needs to do to, kind of get out of purgatory. She's impatient and is just the worst, as she's rude to everyone trying to get out of there. She wants revenge, obviously, on Mr. Wednesday, having left Mr. Sweeney the coin to revive, except it fell out of his hand, meaning her plan backfired. The Purgatory arc is arguably, in my opinion, one of the weakest in the episode, but that might be my bias, as I am just not a fan of Laura Moon or really her story, and I just find her repugnant, as she should be, but in the book she gives the coin to Shadow, which is a much better story, as she finally has peace, and her story is vastly different, as we haven't had too many major reveals just yet, but I will save that for the end. Now, she steals an orange card, which has been called, as she's just awful, and gets chased by a black mass in the hallway, and eventually lands in a cinema room as she's rude to the usherette and the AV guy and watches a tape of her life. Now, this kind of take on Purgatory really reminded me of the show Preacher, which was really good, and I really need to finish that. I don't think I finished the final season. She takes over, however, and steps into the tape, and she's supposed to actually watch it, but again, she takes over, and she explains how she tricked her dad into cheating on her mother, as the mother didn't go on the trip to the fair, and it scarred her, ending up like she is. But the usherette hints that she isn't over it, and it would be better if she just watches the tape. She leaves and falls into water and returns to watch the tape once more. She learns that she was actually innocent. She was just a simple child there with her father, and it was her father who had the idea to cheat on his own volition. Now, she does get some peace from this, and she will finally acknowledge her reality, and she will soon meet Liam Doyle, a new leprechaun whose coin was destroyed by Mr. Wednesday. Luckily, she has a coin laying around, and he will be played by the same actor who played Ramsay Bolton, and it's nice to see him back once more on TV. Now, while all of this is going on, Shadow and Marguerite are part of a search party for Alison, who is missing as Hinzelmann takes over and hands over disposable cameras for people to take photos of stuff so they don't have to send it over the internet. This is, of course, because of who Hinzelmann is and doesn't want a record of this going on in the town online, which may attract unwanted interest, but you'll understand why I've said that in the book spoilers section at the end of this video. Now, Wednesday then heads over to see Demeter, but realizes that she's at a care facility, and he's very confused and decides that he wants to get a special gift as he fawns over his former flame. The Demeter story was a bit of a letdown, purely because I was excited for a brand new character, and I expected a bit more, but that's on me, and the actress who played her is just so good, so maybe I'm just really overthinking it there. But the search for Alison continues as we see Shadow and Marguerite find a feather, which we saw last episode with blood around it. This I expect is from the Thunderbird, something which is heavily influenced. This, I expect, is from the Thunderbird, something which we will learn about later in the show and was heavy in the book here in the latter part of the Lakeside story. Now, Hinzelmann thinks that she has found something, but the blue mitten that she found simply belongs to her relative, and it's clear that she is trying to sabotage the search because of really who she is in the book. Shadow is offered a lift into town as Marguerite is interviewing people for the newspaper as she's the editor. And we have an awkward forced moment about race and how Chad says that he didn't like the optics of who he interviewed for Alison going missing. I get what they're trying to do, but it just seems so very clunky and sort of out of nowhere. Now, Wednesday returns to learn that Demeter is a patient in the care facility and not the owner, which he seems to be shocked by, and well, she's not interested in going with him whatsoever, and she seems to actually like being in there. Well, she clearly knows that he's up to something, and he heads to the guy who has been appointed by the court to look after her, and I love the grift about the wife and like that, and I really liked that Wednesday learns that Mr. Hutchinson actually owns part of the care facility and has other people he's looking after in there to leech money off of them. But Demeter has a court date as well to be put into custody of Mr. Wednesday, but she sees right through him and his platitudes. She sees him as just desperate and will only help him once she tells him what he really wants. And while the back and forth was good, again, I expected just a bit more backstory, but I guess we'll learn that as the season itself actually rolls on. Now, Shadow is back home with Marguerite as he bought something to stop the rampant burglaries that are going on around the town, but she's already thought of it. They discuss books, and she seems to have an interest in history and has the Histories by Herodotus, who was one of the fathers of history as he looked into the Persian Wars. Now, she gives him the history of Lakeside's records, which is key, as in the book he actually goes to libraries to research his dreams and finds records of the town from the 1800s. But I expect after his dreams, this is going to happen in the show. Now, there is also the Lakeside logo on Marguerite's table, which has a Thunderbird on it, and her history goes back to the last episode's prologue, but more on that in a bit. Now, he falls asleep and he is in his dreams once more. We have the magazines talking to him, and he sees some women in the freezer beckoning him. These are the Orissa of the pantheon of the Yoruba and will be trying to heavily influence him in the show, and it will be part of Shadow Moon's unexplored mythology, which is why he contacts Mr. Wednesday to learn where Bilquis is, as she can help him explore this. It's a bit different to the books, as these gods in his dreams are actually not in the original text. And Mr. Wednesday says find out what happened to Tech Boy as well when he heads to Bilquis. And it's a curious one. I like this as they're going in a bit of a different path in the book. And it's going to be nice as someone who has read the book. I want to know where this goes. I really do like it when they kind of change things up a bit. Now, Bilquis is still ravaged by what happened when she consumed the tech guy last episode, and his phone is still there as someone comes in to attack her, but she has been captured as Shadow arrives and finds Tech Boy whimpering. So we will find out what happens there as we're going to go into the promo for next week, so be careful of the spoilers here. Now, next episode, Tech Boy and Shadow will be trying to find Bilquis, as she is integral to both Shadow and Tech Boy, and it's going to be pretty funny to see them try and actually work together, and we also see her captured as well. Tech Boy is seemingly out of favour with the new gods, and it's tough to see where his new expanded story is being killed. And then we see Johan with Mr. Wednesday, and it seems like Mr. Wednesday may be offed. But here we go into the book spoilers here. Now, the Thunderbird I did mention is a big thing in Algonquin mythology, and is going to be very important moving forward. Now, in the mythology, the Thunderbird controls the upper world, while the underworld is controlled by the underwater panther, or the great horned serpent. The Thunderbird throws lightning at the underworld creatures and creates thunder by flapping its wings, and is a big part of this. As you'll remember, last episode we did have a Native American tribe actually be attacked by these Norse people, and it does show the early part of Lakeside, and it does seem that we did have Odin and Mr. Wednesday's people take over, but we will find out that Hinzelman, obviously here the nice sweet old lady, is actually an old god who went on to try and keep the town, found the town, and then used these children going missing as sacrifices to her, played by a bloke in the book. But it's going to be curious here, as we did have some very cool stuff in the book where Shadow worked this out, and the bodies of the children are hidden in the clunker on the ice, so they're all looking in the wrong place. And he does work this out, find them, and the Thunderbird transports him away. But that is it for this video, so if you enjoyed it, a like would be super appreciated, and please do subscribe with notifications on, and I will see you soon, and goodbye.